So I have to tell you a couple things that happened to me today. So the first thing is I'm Shannon Hoff. Nice to meet you. I just got up here and got all excited. The first thing is I'm at home this morning, and I always listen to like Daily Mix One, which is Christian, different songs that come and go. And I had never heard this song before, but I kid you not, all of a sudden I'm hearing "Fill my cup, Lord," and I won't do that again because I don't that singing thing. But I was like, what? Really? This is a sign. And then I go to my desk in my office and I sit down, and I was a little nervous today. And I have a thing. I sound like a freak kind of, but I'm not. I don't think. I have a thing that I take a thing out every day, it's a saying. Generally speaking, it's positive and uplifting. And today it said, "Rise up, take courage, and do it." And I thought, okay, what is there to be nervous about? A lot of things. But I want to start by saying, I want to read a quote from an author that I just found a couple days. Actually, I just got the book in the mail a few days ago. Somebody could call that a sign too. Jimmy Moss is a medical doctor. The book is called A Doctored Life from Homeless to Harvard. His quote is, "We all have a story. Although we often lean on the experiences of others, I do not think we necessarily need other people's stories to motivate and inspire us. We can tap into our own. I challenge you to not be afraid of re-exploring the life you've traveled, nor let your journey prevent you from continuing towards the better life." I felt like this came to me so quickly because while I have a story that I will be honest, I have not shared publicly ever, but I'm sharing it today for a very good reason. I guess sharing my story today is like admitting or understanding that I have finally found home. Or let me say this, God has finally brought me to a place of understanding that I understand what home means. And if I'm home, then it is time to release this story. As you listen, well, let me say this. Okay. I went off my script and I'm all like, oh, I'm okay. So as we talk about my story, I know it's about home, right? So here's home. What authority do I have to speak on the topic of home? I do not. I have no expertise around home. I do not understand what having a home consistently means. I've never belonged anywhere for any length of time, and I have never understood what community means. And you'll understand more as I share my story. What I can speak to today is, what is life like when you frantically seek for your version of home that is what looks like the Brady Bunch or all those other sitcoms I watched as a kid that said this is what home is and this is what home is supposed to look like, and what I longed for as a child. But what I consistently found disappointed me, and it crushed my spirit. I can also speak to mistakes, which we won't dwell on those, and wrong turns a girl will take when she searches for something as fundamental as home. So I was actually born at Salem Hospital 60 years ago, believe it or not. God help me. Back in that day, hospitals were pretty insistent that moms and dads paid the bill before the baby was handed over, right? So my parents were just passing through, and I'm pretty sure that we had no home at that time. So they didn't know my dad, and so he just took me sweet little bundle of joy that I was and still am. And he handed me to the nurse and said, "Will you please take care of her?" Obviously, he was teasing. He knew that they wouldn't keep me, but it is just an understanding of the fact that that is where I started. I started homeless. Now, I have to say this because it would be such a shame if anyone felt like this was about sympathy or look at me, look what I've done. Be angry at my parents. My parents are lovely souls. I love them. They are amazing and they have done the best they could in their circumstances. If we look at anything through my story other than what God has done for me, my life, it would be a sin, because that is why I'm here. Not to say, look at me, absolutely to say, look at him. So some of the things I will talk about, the resilience of children, thank God. The importance of praying, grandparents. The ability to forgive those who hurt you, and the ability to receive the forgiveness that you so deserve. Most important today, I want to share an understanding of home that could only be brought to me through my story, through my childhood. I don't think people can understand home the way that I understand it until you search so hard for it, as I have done. So as a child, we were off and on homeless back before it was all the rage as it is now, sadly. We spent time in backseats of cars, and we called it camping, and we picked berries, and my parents picked berries, and we all fought in the backseat of the car and ran around, and I'm sure we got into some kind of trouble because that's what we did back then. Drugs and alcohol were very prevalent in my home, as you can guess. My father was very addicted, and my mother was very damaged and codependent. Violent fights to the point to where I literally had to take my brother and sister, I was the oldest of three, and I would take them into the bedroom, and we would hide behind the bed. And I remember this while everything in the home was destroyed. There was no consistent school. I did not attend a school for any length of time. If I went back to a school for the second year, it would have been for a short time. We would leave through windows in the middle of the night because my mom was afraid of my father. And one time, as we left, my mom had me, and my dad grabbed my other arm, and I will never forget this as long as I live. And they said, "No, she stays with me. No, she stays with me." And as if that wasn't hard enough, I remember looking over at my brother and sister and wondering how they felt, because they were fighting over me. I mean, I was the prize. Ugh, go figure. I never fit in. I was always the kid that everyone looked at. She didn't dress the same. She didn't smell the same. She didn't act the same. I couldn't have friends over when we had a house, because if we had a house, it was filthy. Sorry, I know you're all eating. Pets came and went. Sometimes we would go to bed, and the next day we would wake up and the pets would be gone because we could not care for them. I don't know what happened to the pets. I just knew that my pet was gone. This went on, off and on, for 15 years. Was it always terrible? No, I mean, there were good times. My parents were loving. They wanted to do right. And it's so funny because I was speaking with my dad not very long ago, and it has taken us a long time to have a good relationship, I will be honest. And he looked at me, he says, Shannon, I think I might have been a little selfish. I'm like, you think? Yeah, possibly. And we laughed because that's where God has taken me and him. They did not know God, and they had their own wounds passed down to them from their families. And what is amazing is I can stand here today and say that I have broken a chain with my own children. My children are healthy and happy and amazing human beings, but I was a mess up. I'll be honest. So I want to talk about memories. It's funny, my younger sister, I'm the oldest of three. I have a younger sister and a younger brother, and my sister and I are very close, and we chat a lot about the absence of childhood memories. I know I have them, but what I see when I look back, it's like there's shadows on a wall, and they're faint, and it's like they're there, but they're not mine. I didn't live them. It is not like I have formative memories of childhood. Some of my memories were stories. Like, when I was little, I don't ever remember throwing a puppy out a window, but I believe I did because that's the story I heard. That sounds gruesome, right? My dad was playing a joke on me, and he's saying, oh, look, puppy out window, and he was putting it behind the curtain, right? When in fact, I did not understand that, and so I threw the puppy out the window. Puppy was fine. No puppies were injured in the story. It's not like I remembered throwing the puppy out the window, but I just remember hearing about it. So my memories so often, I believe, are from stories. Now, I think there's a reason that memories are distant for me, and I think that it is healthy. But it really did cause a sense of separation and a sense of isolation, because in missing memories of childhood, I never learned to form relationships. So a time came, and it was time. I was 15 years old, which I thought I knew everything. I mean, don't 15-year-olds think they know everything? Mm-hmm. I was positive. I was sure I could do it on my own. So to my mother's annoyance, I emancipated at 15. I went to the courthouse and I said, I'm all ties. I don't know how I got that. I do remember, before I go on, I do remember sitting on a rock as a teenager, and I'm thinking, what? And I remember the sun on my face. And I also remember in that moment that there was something in my heart saying, no, this is not what you're going to be. This is not the life you're going to live. I remember that is not a distant, shadowy memory. That is a memory. I just remember it. And in that moment, I knew I could not, I was not going to carry this cycle on. So I emancipated at 15. I quit high school in my freshman year. I got a job at Burger King, and I was Employee of the Month twice. Thank you. That's hard to do. I was the fry person, right? I had scars all up and down my arms. It was like, wow. I then went to US Bank, which I was 15 when I got a job at US Bank. And I was there for 18 years. And I started filing checks, Then I was a bookkeeper, and then I ran branches, I sold stock, I did all kinds of things. I always found a way to blend in. And I found a way to be what the people needed me to be in order to not be seen. Not be seen. Lots of broken relationships. 2 amazing kids, as I've said. But up until a few years ago, I still did not find home. I was still searching. I mean, desperately. But God says to us and to me, my people will live in peaceful dwelling places, in secure homes, in undisturbed places of rest. What joy to someone that has spent more than half their life looking for that. No one told me, or they did and I wasn't listening. My grandmother, Evangeline, we always called her Eva, and after she passed, I did a little search and realized that her name was Evangeline, and I thought, why did I ever call her Eva? What a beautiful name. She was our angel. So many times grandmother would show up with boxes of gifts, or when we went out windows, we would end up at grandma's house. She was the only home I ever knew. But God, I say that a lot. I think we all should, right? We look at things and we look around and we think, oh, how can anything be okay? But God, He refused to leave me in a place of not knowing home. He loves me too much. I just had to say yes. I just had to listen. Now, I'm not saying I said yes to being perfect. Trust me, I'm not saying I said yes to, I'm trying. But I did have to say yes to accept His love in spite of how I felt I did not deserve it. It's a funny thing about kids that grow up like I do. It's really easy for me to look at my parents and say, it's okay, you did the best you could. We struggle with looking at ourselves and saying, you did the best you could. And forgiving ourselves. God speaks to me in ways, and He has always shown me eagles, rainbows, and the ocean. I had a moment at an organization that was absolutely devastating. It was wrong. It was hurtful. It crushed me. And I went into the bathroom and I was crying, and I stood there and I just felt this overwhelming sense of peace, that there was more, there's something more. As I was driving home that day, I kid you not, on every single place, there was a rainbow, and there was like triple rainbows. And I was like, what? It was like His call to me to say, listen, there's more. Don't give up yet. You got this. So the thing that we should never stop doing, we should never stop believing in God's plan to restore and recreate our life in a way that will surprise everyone, including you. Because that's exactly what He's done. He has surprised me. Now, lots of you know me and you think, oh, well, you don't seem cut off and you don't seem distant. You don't seem like you haven't formed relationships. It's because I have. So to recap, abuse, neglect, formative years taught me not to trust in anyone. I lived in shame. I know my praying grandmother is the reason I stand here today, healed or healing. I don't know, will we ever completely heal? I think that's the journey, is for us to heal. And I am so in love with Jesus. I have a special, he is mine and I am his. It is not even religious. I'm going to be honest. I'm not a huge fan. I mean, God bless you. Nothing to do with you. I just believe that it is relationship. It's his and it's mine. I have hurt people. The thing about Adventist Tillamook, this is the important point for me, is that when I say that I am home, that is not just words to me. Home has become sacred. Home isn't about four walls. It's not about a person, because four walls are imperfect and can fall down. People can be here today and they can be gone tomorrow. But God, what is home is my worship of him, my complete, most days, and utter trust in who he is and where he has taken me. When I say home, it is belonging. It is community. And it is love. It is not an accident that I work for Adventist. And my first thing when we say, let's say the B stuff, be love. Because love is home. This is home. You need each other. I need you. This community needs you. This world needs you. God has restored and he has healed my warped sense of home. It has only taken him 58 plus years, a little sooner maybe. I wouldn't have changed a thing. I wouldn't have changed my parents. I wouldn't have changed because I know that somewhere, someday, my story will resonate with somebody else and make a difference, and so will yours. You each have a story to tell. I want to close with words that, and as I read this, it sounds so sad, but it really isn't. It really is just a life lived. The words I want to close with is words that I overheard. Again, this is so much about God. My self-declared atheist brother, sitting on our deck just days before he died. He had brain cancer. And these are the words that I overheard him saying. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now am found. I was blind, but now I see. 'Twas grace that taught my heart to fear, and grace my fears relieved. How precious did that grace appear the hour I first believed. Again, I say to you, we should never be surprised by what God can change and restore and recreate in our circumstances and our life. because that was a huge restoration before my brother died. Thank you for listening. I pray that God touches each one of your hearts, that you go home today and you walk in those four walls and you're just like, thank you, God.